feel free to get more coffee or more breakfast. But I don't want to delay our opportunity to learn together. I'm thrilled to see so many people here, and really so many who aren't able to be here, but we're recording this, and so many people who are participating in our Beth Beit Midrash, which we're kicking off this year. We have over 50 people who are committed to 3 months of learning together, which is really phenomenal. 3 months of partner learning, not just our kickoff here, but also to conclude that learning with our siyum, which will take place at the end of March, in which we'll have the opportunity. Siyum is the Hebrew word for conclusion, and it's customary that when you complete a text, when you complete learning a portion of study, you celebrate and you share a little bit of what you've learned. So what we'll have the opportunity to do together at the end of these 3 months is we'll come together for dinner here, and each zug, each pair, will share a little bit about what you learned. You'll have the opportunity to teach us as well. We'll all have the opportunity to teach each other. But I don't want to delay any further, so I'm thrilled to introduce our teacher this morning, Rabbi Avi Killip, who's here from Machon Hadar and ProjectZug. Beth is partnering with ProjectZug, which created this phenomenal program for independent Chavruta study. Throughout Jewish history, throughout the rabbinic tradition, Chavruta study, parent study, has been part of who we are. That we learn with people who know different things than we know. We learn with different people who disagree with us. We learn with people who bring a different element to us. Rabbi Avi is going to share a little bit about what Chavruta study is, what ProjectZug is, what Machon Hadar is, and introduce us to Chavruta study this morning. So without further ado.
Hi.
Hello.
Morning. So lovely to be here. I had here as the first thing that I wanted to do is to give over the ProjectZug ideology, but the fact that your rabbi already basically said it is a great sign, and I think it's a sign of why this partnership has already been so successful and so phenomenal. But I'll just start by saying it's such a beautiful thing to see a congregation where so many people will come out on a Sunday morning to learn. We'll commit to 3 months of learning together. So already I'll just start by saying thank you for having me here and for being the people that you are and the community that you are. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Rabbi Avi Killip. I was ordained at Hebrew College, which is a pluralistic rabbinical school in Boston, Massachusetts. And I work for Machon Hadar running ProjectZug. So the word Zug means pair or partner in Hebrew. And ProjectZug is really ProjectZug. It's a partnership between Machon Hadar, which is an institution of higher Jewish learning that includes a yeshiva in Manhattan and an organization in Israel called Panim. So both organizations together create the material and recruit and run this project together. So we have groups like yours who are learning together as a community. We actually have communities in Israel that use the same material, that learn with each other. And then we have many people who are paired through the internet from Israel to America. So you should know that you're a part of a bigger project already. So far this year we have 450 people learning with ProjectZug. And that's just this year, and we're launching a whole nother sort of open cycle of learning for people who are not as part of a community that will launch in March. So you should feel excited about being a part of something that's not only bigger within your shul, but also bigger in the Jewish world right now, and also connecting from America to Israel. So ProjectZug, which was actually founded outside of Machon Hadar and became a part of Machon Hadar 2 years ago, which is when I came on to run it, has an ideology of connecting individuals through Jewish learning, which is that relationships are stronger, one-on-one relationships are stronger when we root them in Jewish learning. So some people approach ProjectZug from a point of connection. Maybe they're looking to really connect to someone who's in Israel or in America or vice versa. Or sometimes in a community like yours, there may be people who came to this project. You're interested in the learning, but really you were hoping to form a real, meaningful, substantive relationship with another member of your congregation, of your community. And that relationship is going to be so much richer because of bringing in the text. Because it's hard, actually, to just sit down with someone and have a deep, meaningful conversation wherein you talk not just about the traffic and the weather, but you actually talk about what's important to you and what you care about, and what has been important to Jews for years and what Jews have cared about for years. And when you sit down with a text, when you bring a Jewish text into that one-on-one relationship, whether it's someone you've just met, or even if it's someone that you see every day, whether it's a parent, whether it's somebody that's your spouse, actually, that relationship will be so enriched and so different when you include the text as the third party in that relationship. And the same is true of your relationship with Jewish text, that some people may be drawn to ProjectZug, you may have been drawn to this group because you were really looking to enhance your learning. There was a topic, a class that you thought, oh, Midrash, been dying to explore Midrash, I've never gotten the opportunity to do that. And ProjectZug really believes that it's going to be so much deeper, so much more enriched, your relationship with that text, if you have that relationship with another person, and it's not just you watching a lecture or reading a book by yourself. There's something magic that happens when you bring in another individual. So I wanted to start just by throwing out a text that's a one-line text that we'll discuss for a few minutes, and then I just want to briefly, very briefly, because I know we're a big group, but I do want to take the time to just go around the room and let everybody say your name and who your chavruta is. And I know that's very brief, but I think it's important for us to get all the names and all the voices into the room, and then we're going to move to another longer text that we'll actually have a chance to study in chavruta, one-on-one today.
And not all, you may not know because not all pairs have been finalized yet.
Okay, so if you know who your chavruta is, you'll share, and if not, you'll tell us what you're looking for in a chavruta, maybe, and that will help the rest of the pairs get finalized. Okay, so I wrote a one-line text up here. This is from Brachot, from the Talmud. It says, Ein Torah nichnet ela b'chavura, which means Torah is acquired only in community. It's actually, this Ein ela in the Hebrew is an Aramaic phrase the Talmud uses to say only, which is actually a double negative. It's not except only. So Torah is not acquired except only in community. So I would love to hear, let's take at least 3 thoughts on what does that mean? Why would that be true, do you think? Yeah.
It was given in community.
Say more?
It was given to all of us at Mount Sinai.
Nice, beautiful.
Because Torah is meant to be debated and discussed, and there's not one right interpretation, so you need other people to do that.
Right, so it's a multiplicity of receiving and a multiplicity of contributing.
Judaism is a community-oriented religion. It's not individualistic. The concept of the minyan is central to prayer, so it fits that the study of the central text should also be done in community.
Right. So it seems maybe it's intuitive that Jewish ritual, or whether or not it's intuitive, it's legally mandated. Certain Jewish rituals have to happen in community. You can't get married without 10 people there to say those blessings. You know, you can't mourn a person that died, a loved one, without 10 people there. And we don't have that kind of mandate for learning. You must do your Jewish learning in community. And here's this phrase. I'll go even a step further. There is a version of this line in the Talmud that ends with, and if you learn Torah alone, you become stupider. It really goes the extra mile. So someone give me, that's actually a different statement. That's pretty extreme. So what's the danger of learning Torah alone? Why would learning Torah alone actually make you stupider?
When you only have yourself, you become very narrow-minded because you're only looking at something from one perspective. You need diversification of other perspectives in order to broaden your own understanding.
Right. There's and I think it's also trying to say there's a lot at stake when we study Torah, and the possibility that we could do it wrong if we don't have, if you're all on your own and you don't have anyone to keep you in check or to guide you or to correct you, you could really go off in the wrong direction very quickly. Yeah. Anyone additional again?
Oh, I just expanding on that. There's a wonderful aphorism from Benjamin Franklin that a person wrapped in himself makes a very small bundle.
Say it again.
A person wrapped in himself makes a very small bundle.
So explain it for us. Tell us the.
Well, if you're only in dialogue with yourself, if you're only learning for yourself, and on your own, what you produce doesn't amount to nearly as much as, or what you learn, what you produce, what you pass on doesn't extend beyond oneself. So there's this tiny footprint versus larger footprint.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, do we have one more reflection on this? Yeah.
If I would have learned alone, I would have made chicken parve.
No, we might have been better off for that. Right. I think what you're raising though is that when you're making it alone, it's that don't learn alone means not just don't learn without the other people in the room today, but it's also don't learn without the other voices that are coming from the past, because there's so much that we have inherited that we would not have, probably for better and for worse, created right now, and that, I think this is something we experience a lot when people point to a verse in the Bible and say, but how can the Torah say this? And we say, well, we don't just have the Torah, we have this whole history of voices that we're engaging with, and let's not leave those voices out either. Beautiful. Okay, I want us we're going to look at a story from the Talmud about a Chavruta, but I want us to quickly do go around and hear everybody's name, because it's my understanding that some of you know each other very, very well, and some of you don't know each other at all. So I want to at least get you to have the opportunity to hear each other's names, and then even though we'll spend today mostly one-on-one, you'll know each other, and when you see each other around Shul in the next few months, you'll be able to reach out and say, hey, you're in that Beit Midrash group. Let's get to know each other. Okay, so maybe we'll start on this side and just be as loud as you can be.
I'm Claire Nierberg, and my partner is my husband. I have two partners, actually. I'm learning with him. We're doing mindfulness. And my sister in Israel and I are going to be studying Rachel.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And Claire gets the Overachiever Award. I would not have expected anything less.
Well, so Claire will be a really great person to tell us at the end how different Chavruta manifests differently.
It'll be very different.
Okay.
I'm Aaron Nierberg, and Claire's my partner.
Fabulous.
Stu Gottlieb, and my partner is my wife, Linda, and doing that course on pluralism.
I'm Linda Gottlieb.
I'm Harvey Barkosi. I'm going to study with my wife, who
I love
make
this.
me do the well, I can't disappoint and not show up.
We had questions about that.
A little louder.
I'm Joan Buckholz.
What's your topic?
We're studying pluralism.
What is it?
Pluralism.
I'm Nomi Colton-Max. I'm studying with Lori Schuldiner-Shore, who's not here, and we are doing Tehillim Psalms.
Every course I want to say, oh, that's a good one. Who did that?
I'm Morial Webster, and I'm going to be studying with my son Yehuda. Some of you know Yehuda well. And we're planning to study the Psalms as well.
Nice. I also have a son, Yehuda, so I want to.
I'm Jimmy Schwartz. Obviously, Psalms are popular. My partner is Ron Meyer, who's on a field trip to Israel checking out what we're going to study. Just Okarant. And I've done this program. I just finished the one on Who is Truly Rich.
Fabulous.
And we're looking forward to doing this one.
My name is Samantha Kaminsky. My partner is Nama Tokayer. She's not here right now. We are going to study ancient Jewish texts.
Risa Solomon, and my partner is Rachel Goldman, who's also not here, and we'll be studying pluralism.
My name is Les Greenberg.
Read that one. Was that what you had to read that to know that?
Yeah. No, I had to read my wife's stick in here. I'll be doing Midrash with To Be Determined, and my wife, Jackie, who's sitting right here, will be doing Judaism, identity, pluralism, and peoplehood?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever that is. That's what she's doing.
Exactly. She'll
But
tell
now
us at
we-
the end what that is.
Yes, she will, hopefully.
Oh, sorry.
Well, let's do the back table.
Okay, good. Sorry, I'm taking notes.
I'm Cheryl Hoffman. I'm studying with Michelle Bayou, who's not here, and we're studying, I forgot the full name, but it's something about water.
Water, yes, Miriam water.
Miriam.
This is a good day for that one.
That's what?
This is a good day for that one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of water. I feel like I took a boat here instead of coming.
I bet I got skipped.
No, you didn't. Go ahead.
Oh, going that way? Oh, I'm Bill Gold. I'm studying with Mel Nathanson, who's in Europe. I would probably like to go to do the first lesson. And we're studying the Midrash. Give Midrash.
Yeah, perfect.
How to learn it.
No one? No.
I'm Erica Gold. My partner's going to be Alba Hoffman. She's not here, and we're doing space and structure.
Space and structure.
Space architectural blueprint, place, space, structure, and architecture in ancient and contemporary Jewish experience.
It's a great class. It really is.
Hi, I'm Jim Gardner, and I will be paired with Jeff Bennett, my neighbor here, figuratively, and I guess we'll discover how literally we are neighborly. We're doing Midrash.
Still your partner.
Very well. How to study Midrash. It's something I'm interested in since I discovered a copy of Legends of the Jews by Lewis Ginsburg in my college bookstore. I was just blown away by all these extra biblical stories. Been interested in Midrash.
This will be a great class for you.
Seth Brown. I'll be working with my wife Heather, and we'll be studying philosophy of belief.
Okay, now let's do this front table.
I'm Christine Foley Ostroff, and I will be studying with my husband, Jonathan Ostroff. And 2 young kids were stressed out, so we're excited about we need it.
I'm Ada Beth Cutler, and I'm going to be studying with my husband, who can introduce himself. And we're also going to do Ethan Tucker's course, Judaism, Identity, etc., etc.
And I'm Chuck Elder, what she said.
Marilyn Jacobs, and I am studying with my daughter Mia, who's in DC, so we'll be distance learning. And we are studying the I Can't Believe It, What God, Prophecy, and Free Will meant in the past. And she was a religious studies major, so I'm already incredibly overmatched.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. Do the front, and then we'll move to
I'm Angela Wolf. I'm going to be, for a variety of reasons, a third wheel with Rachel Wayner, and I don't know who her partner is.
Seth, her brother.
With Rachel and Seth, and I don't know what we're studying. And
You are studying the architecture course.
So flexible.
I'm studying around.
All right. Back table.
I'm Dory Romani. I'll be sitting with Megan Adams, and we'll be sitting front now.
I'm Michelle Blue. I'm coming to this very late in the game, but I know I want to get involved, so I brought my husband out. We have no idea what we're doing.
All right. Great.
My name's Evan Sealy, what we're studying is
Rabbi Litsky, and I will be studying with my wife Andrea the class about ramen.
Is that like the I was going to say the
He's looking for points.
It's a unique, I think, enriching experience to learn with a spouse. Different than learning with other relationships. So I want us to get a chance to really dive into some actual Chavruta learning, because there's something as much as we facilitate online learning, there's something truly magical about the energy in a room when it's full of pairs learning in chavruta. So chavruta is this word that means, it's Aramaic, but it's coming from the word chaver, or partner, friend in modern Hebrew. So I picked a story for us to read this morning. I picked a story because stories are fun, and who doesn't love a story? I also picked a story because I think stories lend themselves really well to a first introduction into chavruta, wherein the model of chavruta is not necessarily to get to one right answer. And I think that's more intuitive to us when we study stories. It's something about our literature, Western upbringing, but we can wrap our head around the idea that a story would have multiple meanings. A metaphor has multiple applications in a way that when we dive right into a legal text, we're much more likely, or a philosophical text, about belief, something that really feels important to us. We can be much quicker to say, I'm right and you're wrong. And the foundation of chavruta learning is really about questions, that we approach each other with questions. We approach the text with questions, and we approach each other with questions. When your chavruta says something, two really great ways to acknowledge your chavruta and to move the conversation forward are to repeat back what you think they said, and then to ask them a question about it, or to raise a question about it. So sometimes it's a let's go deeper question, and sometimes it's a challenging question. Well, I'm not sure I believe that. I wonder how you would apply that to this situation. That questions are really at the heart of how we relate to each other in chavruta. And stories, and in particular Talmudic stories, really lend themselves well to questions. So the story I'm bringing you is actually an exceptionally long story for a story in the Talmud. You'll see it's only 3 pages with a tiny line on each page, the way that I've broken it up for you. And yet it's one of the longer Talmudic stories, because stories in the Talmud are notoriously short in terms of words. That any story in the Talmud you could tell, and you'll see when you read the story, you could tell the story in a novel. You could tell the story probably in several novels. I'm not going to make you do this, but I want to tell you about it as an exercise because it'll help you picture how you want to approach this story. I actually had a teacher of Midrash, of Talmudic stories, who had us write longer versions of the story, where he would say, take this 5-line story and turn it into a 5-page story. And then, once we did that, he would say, okay, now cross everything out that wasn't in the original story. Why are those the things that are left? Why is this what's left? Why is this the important part of the story? And that's a powerful way to approach these stories. The story we're going to look at, I'm calling the story of the ultimate chavruta. It's a story of 2 rabbis, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. And we're going to follow their story from start to finish. So I'll give you a little bit of the background. Rabbi Yochanan is notoriously beautiful. He is the most beautiful of the rabbis. Reish Lakish is notoriously strong. They're both incredibly wise. Before this story begins, Rabbi Yochanan is already a great rabbi. He's one of the top, smartest sages in the Beit Midrash in House of Learning. And Reish Lakish is actually so many translations use the word brigand. He's a pirate. He's actually kind of a gang member. And over the course of this story, he's going to be brought into the Beit Midrash. The 2 of them are going to develop the strongest of chavruta relationships. The climax of the story is that they're going to get in a fight. That's going to start in the Beit Midrash and really spiral very quickly to something much more serious. And we will follow the story all the way to the end, and I really mean the end, because by the end of this story, both of them will have died. So it's pretty extreme. So when I say that they're the ultimate chavruta, don't confuse it for me suggesting that they are how you should model your chavruta relationship. That's not what we're going for here.
Learn to the death.
Exactly. But there's so much to enjoy and love about this story, and there's also so much to learn from them about how to be the greatest chavruta and how not to be a chavruta and how not to behave in chavruta. So I'm going to hand out the pages. I want to give you one piece of background before you start learning, which is just a technical fact that will help you. When they get in a disagreement, when you get to the scene in this story where the two of them get in a disagreement, the question that they're addressing is, starts out with, when does a particular object become impure? So I just want to give you the background about that there's a concept in Jewish law that objects can acquire impurity and they need to be purified. And there's a question of when in the process of making the object, like if a shoe can become impure, at what point can the shoe start becoming impure? Like, before you've even made it, when it's just a pile of materials. And the answer to all of those questions is it can become impure once it's finalized as an object. It's a complete object. And so then for each object, the rabbis will go through and say, well, when is a shoe really finished? And when is a chair really finished? And when is a shirt really finished? So that's the debate that they're going to get in when it starts to have this language about finished and purity. You'll have some sense of background of what that discussion is. So we're going to take 20 minutes to learn. If your chavruta is here, learn with your chavruta that you'll be learning with for ProjectZug, and if not, we have enough people here that everyone should be able to find a chavruta. At the end of the story, I put some questions for you. There are guidelines. If you are a person who likes questions, you can go ahead and read the questions before you go through the story. If not, go ahead and start learning through the story, and then we'll come back and discuss it. Last sentence or two. And if you felt extremely confused, you're not alone. You're not alone in this room, and you're also not alone in the world of Talmud study. When I translate Talmud stories, I intentionally leave the ambiguity in the text. Because I think sometimes people think, I can't study Talmud, I don't read Aramaic, or I can't study Talmud, I don't read Hebrew. And I want to convey, and I think this is also a part of what ProjectZug is about, that the language barrier doesn't have to keep you out. And it doesn't have to diminish your experience. So I could have written every time it says, he said, it could have actually told you who's talking. But I wanted you to know that the text itself doesn't say. So if I tell you who's talking, it's who I think is who's talking, or it's who scholars have thought is who's speaking. But that if you have a different way of reading it that comes out differently, that's equally legitimate of a reading, because the English I'm giving you here is as close as I could come to what you're seeing in the Hebrew. But let's go through the story. I'm gonna read. Let's have a little bit of story time. And as I'm reading, I want you to be thinking about the following two questions, which is, what are the best practices for chavruta that come out of this? And what are the worst practices for chavruta that come out of this? So if we were to say, we're going to make a list at the end of like the top 3 things you want in a chavruta and the bottom 3 things that you absolutely don't want in a chavruta relationship, where do we see those in this story? Okay. So one day Rabbi Yochanan was bathing in the Jordan. Remember, he's the beautiful one. And Reish Lakish saw him and leapt into the Jordan after him. So I'll pause. This is not the direction I want to go in with this particular class, but you need to know that there's a lot of scholars who look into homosexuality in the Talmud for whom this story is a central story. That the Talmud tells us in other places that Rabbi Yochanan he's the one rabbi who doesn't have a beard, which makes him look feminine, which makes him beautiful or sexually attractive in a certain way. And so this line, your beauty should be for women, that we're about to see there, that's an entire read of this story. It's not the emphasis I want to put on the story now, but if you're interested in reading more about that, you could send me an email after and I'll send you an article you could read that's really fascinating. That's that read of this story. So he jumps into the water. So this is really when they're meeting for the first time ever. This is not, I went into the Beit Midrash and I said, does anybody want to be my chavruta? really, I think, lesson number one we can get from the first line is you could find your chavruta in the most unlikely places. Or your chavruta could find you in the most unlikely place when you're just bathing in the Jordan. Rabbi Yochanan, who is the beautiful one, says to the strong one, your strength should be for Torah. So remember, we said Reish Lakish, previous to this, is a gang member. He's a robber, a thief. And Rabbi Yochanan says, you're so strong, you have so much to give. This should be for Torah. You should be using these skills for Torah. And he responds to Rabbi Yochanan, your beauty should be for women. Really unclear what that means. I'm not going to try to explain it to you. It can be read a lot of different ways, and it is read a lot of different ways. It's not a line that, oh, if a Talmud scholar told you, they would know the answer. It's different scholars read it differently. So Rabbi Yochanan says, look, if you repent, if you sort of give up your gang member ways, you can marry my sister. She's even more beautiful than I am. He accepts it, and then he tries to go back. It seems like this is saying, physically, he tries to go back to pick up a weapon or something that he left behind, and he can't go back. Once he's made this turn towards Torah, towards the Beit Midrash, he can't go back to his former thieving ways. And I think this becomes, again, the Talmud is giving us one phrase for every big idea. That I don't know if this is something you've experienced in your life, that there are certain decisions, certain big life changes that once you've made, you don't go back. And sometimes that's like you moved countries, or you changed careers, or you've, given up a vice, or there's certain changes that you don't go back from. Scene 2. He taught him scripture and oral Torah, and he made him into a great man. So Rabbi Yochanan started out already a great rabbi, and Reish Lakish started out a criminal. And here they become this incredible paradigmatic chavruta relationship. And I wanted to speak to this idea that you raised of, oh, my daughter is a religion major, that I want to point out, I think there's a lesson here for chavruta learning, that in every chavruta relationship, somebody feels that they know more, they have more background.
Well, I'm her mother, so.
So of course you know more. Well, so that's exactly what I want to say, is that when you're engaged in chavruta learning, each person is bringing a different life experience to this text. Some people's life experience includes previous Torah learning. Some people's life experience includes all kinds of other life experiences, and that each person brings something different to the text, that they're each going to be an expert on a different idea and a different concept. And then the second piece is that part of what makes chavruta learning really special, and this is something I would encourage you to really try to do when you're doing the learning of your course together, is that when you make a point in a chavruta conversation, you anchor it in the text. You say, well, but this line made me think this. You don't say, well, but I happen to know that rabbis think this. We really start from we say there's a psalm on the page, we read that psalm. What is this psalm telling us? And that's an equalizer in some sense. And so I think there's something powerful here about the fact that this isn't one person knew a little bit more than the other. This is, one was already the great rabbi in the Beit Midrash, and one had never ever looked at a piece of Torah in his life, and here they end up as the ultimate chavruta pair. Until one fateful day when they have this disagreement in the Beit Midrash. And the disagreement is about a sword or a knife. It's about a weapon. It's about weaponry. And the question is, like we said, when is it completed? And one says through fire, and one says through water. And we could go in a whole direction about the metaphors of water finishing in water when we just had the two of them meet for the first time in water. But let's just the actual facts of the story here. So they have a disagreement. Rabbi Yochanan says it's finished when it's tempered in the furnace, and Reish Lakish says it's finished when it's dunked in water. And Rabbi Yochanan goes for a low blow. Here they are in this intellectual argument, and so quickly and so seamlessly, Rabbi Yochanan pulls this punch where he goes to an emotional place, he goes to a human place, and he says, a robber understands his trade. So he's saying, oh, you think you know about knives? Well, you would know about knives, wouldn't you? Because you're a criminal. Because you're a gang member, and gang members know about knives, don't they? This is not how you behave in a Beit Midrash. This is actually where the whole story, this one line is going to be where the whole story unravels, and where we lose what so much, not just do they lose their relationship and eventually lose their lives from this, but so much Torah that we could have known, so many more pages of Talmud that they would have figured out and come up with amazing answers. And all of that is lost because Rabbi Yochanan slips into this realm where he forgets that this is an intellectual fight for the sake of heaven, of an argument, and he starts to actually be mean. And I'll say, having spent a lot of time in Chavruta and the Beit Midrash, it's easy to happen, actually, where you start from a place of let's have a philosophical debate, and you end up actually mad at the person because they don't understand, and you're right, and they're wrong, and you may end up pulling, especially, here, this is, the reason he's able to hurt the other person is because they have such a deep and intimate relationship, that he knows his background, he knows which thing it is that he can say that will hurt them most. To say, yeah, well, we may be equal now, but remember when you knew nothing. Remember when I knew everything. Yeah.
A thought just occurred to me that this story, and in fact, Rabbi Yochanan is proving his point by making this statement, because it's in the heat of the moment that he becomes impure, not when he's later on intellectually cooled off.
Yeah, nice. So it's right. The imagery there is really powerful, and they started off in the water place. Those are the bookends. That's where the Chavruta starts and where the Chavruta ends. So he pulls the slow punch, and he says, "You would know." And Reish Lakish is dejected. He says, "What good did you do me? There they called me Rav, and here they call me Rav," which is a way of saying, I was the leader of the gang, now I'm the leader of the Beit Midrash. When you are comparing back to that former life, you make me feel like I've gotten nowhere. Like, what good, what was the point? I was already the leader. Why did I spend all this time to try to be the leader here if you're going to treat me like I'm still the leader of the gang? And Rabbi Yochanan says, I benefited you by bringing you under the wings of the Shekhinah. No, I gave you so much. Without me, you didn't have a relationship with God, and now you do have this relationship with God. And this is the last time they talk to each other. That's end of the next scene.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I say this, and so many of us, myself included, are going to be learning with people that we're very close to. It's interesting because it shows how difficult it is to compartmentalize what you're doing and not let any previous experiences that you had come into play. It's a deeper challenge. What's going on with Rabbi Yochanan's really showing is that can you really forget somebody's past, right? Saying that can you accept that somebody has changed, that somebody is different than they used to be? And if we have history with spouses and partners or children or parents or whomever, can we put all that aside for the sake of learning, or does that come into it? And the flip side is it good that that comes into it because we need our experiences to come into our learning?
Right, and I think actually the next two lines make exactly that point. Because we're told Rabbi Yochanan becomes emotionally stricken. The Hebrew is chalash da'ate. His da'at, if you know in Hebrew, is like emotion is chalash, is weakened. And Reish Lakish, chalash da'ate, chalash Reish Lakish, there's no da'ate. He actually becomes ill. And I think that part of what that point is trying to teach is to say, one bleeds into the other. Like, don't think that you can put someone down. You know, you could say, like, I just hurt his feelings. I didn't actually hurt him. And here, these two lines, it's like the two of them both unravel from this experience. And even though one of them is an emotional hurt, the other one becomes a real physical hurt. And the line between those is so blurry.
What I think is so beautiful about it is Rabbi Yochanan, who's the intellectual, has the mental collapse, and the strong guy has the physical collapse.
Yes.
But they go back to their essential.
Beautiful. Beautiful. They both lose the thing that they're supposed to be
best at.
Best at, right? They lose their best selves. That's really beautiful reading. Thank you for sharing that. And then this female character comes in. And she is the sister and she is the wife, because she is Rabbi Yochanan's sister and she is Reish Lakish's wife. Yes, it's confusing, but if you'll remember back to that first scene when he said, "You can marry my sister," and I think she's a stand-in here also for our family and friends. That when we have a really strong chavruta relationship, in the positive and in the negative, it radiates out and it can affect, you know, and if not chavruta, like if I use chavruta to mean relationship, when you have a really powerful relationship in your life that has a rift in it, it's going to affect the other relationships as well. And here she comes. She seems to be begging him to pray for Reish Lakish, or at least to talk to him. It seems like she's saying, he was your best friend. He's dying. Talk to him. And Rabbi Yochanan doesn't really seem to say yes or no. Most people read it as he's saying no. He's giving her verses, which may be a little bit of a, like, Rabbi Yochanan, this is time to be human. This is not time for quoting verses. And he's stuck in the Beit Midrash. He can't sort of get out of the Beit Midrash. He's quoting verses, which is the right way to react in the Beit Midrash, and probably the wrong way to react to your sister when her husband is dying. But he brings, this is actually, it looks like two verses. It's two pieces of the same verse in Jeremiah, which starts with, "Leave your fatherless children, I'll preserve them, let the widow trust in me." It's the right verse. He's saying, God will take care of you even in this moment. Some people read it as him saying, I'm not going to take care of you, let God deal with it. Some people read it as him actually trying to be comforting. I sort of left that ambiguity here because you can read it either way. And Reish Lakish, he doesn't go to him. And Reish Lakish dies. And I want to just point you to the Aramaic here. The Aramaic for both of their death is nach nafshe. So nefesh is soul, and nach is rest or peaceful. And so it's not just a dying, but it's a like he was at rest. He dies here, and Rabbi Yochanan is plunged into grief. Suddenly he can't cope. Even, you know, it gets so much worse. And they say, we know what to do. He lost his chavruta. We'll get him another chavruta. You know, this chavruta was so smart. Reish Lakish was so smart. That must be why he liked him. Let's send him this guy, Rabbi Eliezer ben Padat. He's really smart too. And Eliezer ben Padat, you could just picture this happening, is like so eager to make Rabbi Yochanan feel better, like you were sent in. So Rabbi Yochanan says a teaching, and he says, you are so right. And here's how I know you're right, because of this verse, and this verse, and this verse. And Rabbi Yochanan is not having it. He says, this does no good for me. I don't need someone to tell me I'm right. I know I'm right. And this is not what Reish Lakish used to do. He says, Reish Lakish used to tell me why I was wrong. And for every reason he gave me I was wrong, I had to come up with a new reason why I was right. And it enhanced my learning. It made me better for it. I think probably if I told you all right now to stop and think of a person in your life who plays this function, there's probably somebody, maybe it's a sibling, maybe it's a spouse or a coworker, who doesn't say, it looks great. They say, you could do better. Or they ask the questions that push you to say, why is that so important to you? And then you have to articulate why, and that makes you so much stronger. And that's what we're going for in a chavrita relationship.